Welcome back. Faced with sky-high debt, a stagnant economy and disappointing tax collections, South Africa is on an unsustainable fiscal path. With the shocking first quarter GDP figures that showed a shrink by 3.2% of the South African economy, it shows that difficult choices will have to be made and that the matter of dealing with the economy and putting it on a sustainable growth path can no longer be postponed. And I'm still with Lumkile Mondi, who's senior lecturer at Wits Business School. Now, the Stats SA 3.2 numbers, they are way higher than what was predicted, that the economy would contract. And what situation does it put the incoming government in, you think?
It puts the incoming government under very difficult circumstances. Firstly, Tim, remember that we have got a huge debt lingering on us. We've got about 56% of our debt at national level. We've got both Eskom as well as SAA really at the edge of triggering a cross default and a complete financial and economic crisis going forward. Therefore, it means that an economy that shrunk by 3.2%, and more importantly, shed jobs, and really with the global economy growing at a slower rate as well, we are in a tough position. Therefore, I'm expecting the incoming government to act responsibly and adopt those policies that will be growth-orientated, but at the same time seek to control and contain costs as much as possible, because we need to put more money to support South African Airways as well as Eskom if we still want to keep them going forward rather than privatize them.
What do you what do you think is the function of this 3.2% contraction? I mean, where does it emanate from? Is it a policy problem?
It's a choice problem. It is a choice problem by the governing party that, you know, when President Zuma repurposed the state and hollowed out institutions and changed boards willy-nilly by appointing politically connected people, those that we know now were part of a bigger political and economic project led under the leadership of the president. That, in fact, has made us to be in a very, very poor position, because corruption and leakage of funding was enormous, which was supposed to go into infrastructure investment, using both Transnet as well as Eskom as levers of
I want to interrupt you there for a second, because I've seen people comment saying, why blame Zuma for this? This contraction happened under Cyril Ramaphosa's watch. How does he feature here? I mean, the current president has been in that position for about 18 months now.
Well, he didn't feature as a very influential person. The context, Tim, goes to pre-Mangaung 53rd National Elective Conference, the ANC, where we had former President Butantle on site, and in his slate, and Ramaphosa, who was a business person, who came in at the favor of President Zuma into his slate because of ambitions. He saw that this is the shortest route for me to become a president. So in that regard, he had nothing to say, because he was put in there by the very same slate that put him in Mangaung. So there's no surprise there. So what we expect him now to do in the new dawn is then to show South Africans who Cyril Ramaphosa is. So that in that regard, then, he can help us undo all the damage done by the ANC under President Zuma, but more important also, make sure that he mobilizes society, because we're a fractured society, we're the highest unequal society in the world, with levels of unemployment being the highest among middle-income countries. So in that regard, he needs to get good people around him, shape up and make sure that we're able to drive a different agenda, a different growth trajectory, and restructure the minerals and energy complex for inclusivity and move forward.
Well, let me pick up on the earlier conversation that we had with Solima Paila, and not necessarily the quantitative easing part of the discussion, but the fact that senior members leaders of the ANC themselves, who must make the choices and give direction that you're talking about, do not seem to agree on what has to happen. So given the experience of earlier this week, what would give anybody confidence that the ANC will come up with appropriate decisions, will make the right choices that will put South Africa on a growth path?
So many of us are able to differentiate between the ANC as a political party and the presidency as an executive with a cabinet. So I think the cabinet under President Ramaphosa should be able to really effect changes with policies that put South Africa first, not the ANC first. So I think those tensions that have existed for many, many years between the party as well as the executive are going to continue. And I think a very, very healthy team, because what then they do is that us as South Africans who want a functioning democracy, that the promise of 1996 of our constitution is met, will rally around our president as well as the cabinet to support them across political lines to achieve the goal of getting our economy back on track and really work harder through growth strategies that create jobs that are able to bring that hope that 1996 presents us with.
We talk about growth, we talk about employment that has to be created, and those things will only come or predominantly come from the business sector.
Yes.
But we don't hear the business voice in the deliberations on how the economy should be managed, right? We do know that the ANC has got an alliance with COSATU, the labor movement, and with the Communist Party. But, you know, the voice of business seems to be missing some way. If it were left to business from your interactions with that community, what do you think the choices should be then that would help spur the growth as well as create jobs?
So, Tim, business has been very much engaged. Firstly, business wants certainty. You can't thrive on an uncertain environment where there's different noises around policy choices, whether it's the land, whether it's the central bank, or any other form around the mining sector. Business doesn't thrive that. So what business has been doing behind the scenes before the elections was to work with the presidency through a structure that's been created called Private-Public Growth Initiative, where the business has put out a plan around what each and every sector can contribute to bring back growth into the economy and move us forward. So I'm expecting that plan to bring then, through the presidency, labor as well as society to engage now, to have this agreement where labor, business and community and the presidency or the executive usher this new growth plan, which is going to drive us going forward. Tim, we're not going to achieve 2% growth rate because we're starting from a very low base. And more importantly also, the international environment doesn't allow us. So in that regard, we won't be able to deal with unemployment as fast as we would like to. But, you know, we need that pact, that compact, that at least for the next 5 years, we lock in certainty, and then all these parties that have agreed to the compact start doing and deliver on the promise that they've made.
The focus is on the president, obviously. He's a highly profiled individual, and the role itself. So for many South Africans who are excluded from the economy, particularly those who do not have jobs and have not had jobs in a long time and are looking for hope, what should they hear from the president? What do you think are the decisions they should take and the actions they should take over the next 100 days, 6 months?
Yeah, firstly, I think the president needs to reiterate the point that South Africa belongs to live in it. That as a president, he's not a president for blacks, he's a president for all of us, because just to get rid of the identity politics that are haunting us as a country and making us not to move forward. Once that is done, he then needs to put that growth plan that is so important. Use the public-private growth initiative platform and the agreement that will be ushered through that as a basis for that plan. And thirdly, lock in those comrades in the ANC that have been part of corruption and malfeasance. I think that will weed out quite a lot of the dead that we see in the ANC today, whose names are being mentioned in all the commissions that are taking place at the moment.
Well, doesn't that make a mockery of that process, by the way? You're talking about commissions, right? People hear names being mentioned and wrongdoing that took place within state-owned entities and government departments. The talk is there. People are coming forward, but they don't see any action being taken. That down the line, it would actually destroy whatever confidence people were beginning to have that the president can't deal with these things unless some actions are taken, and they haven't seen any being taken.
They're very wrong. So much has been done, Tim. What the president has done is to really set out these commissions. I mean, not only commissions, sorry, is to set out these institutions like the National Prosecuting Authority and give them powers in terms of the Constitution. So people can't point at the president now because we've strengthened, we've got Ms. Patoe leading it. We've put in now Hermina Cronje to now take it forward around chasing priority crimes. So the blocks are there. So watch the space. I think the attacks and the identity politics, which we hear every day, around minorities having high positions from some of the distractors of the president's agenda, is going to disappear once we start using the hawks to make sure that those that have broken the Public Finance Management Act as well as various laws, they go to jail. And that's going to come. So I think the president has done a lot. So we're not seeing the results yet, but the foundation is there.
You are an economist, and you look at what's happening, at least in the economy then. Or policy-wise, we understand, we can see, and you've explained the things that you see the president doing that give you confidence that things will come right. But in the economy itself, where do you see potential for growth that gives you at least short to medium-term confidence?
So in fact, in that, also talks to the capabilities. In South Africa, the capabilities, because of the economy that the ANC has failed to restructure, a lot of the economic capabilities still rest with white people. So in the selection and rebuilding institution, South Africans need to go beyond racial identities and think about capability to make this institution function and deliver. So the noise that we heard about Jahana leaving, etc., is so sad because he hasn't delivered any turnaround at SAA, for example. So we need capability, even if it means that the capability comes within the sector and that person is white. As long as that person is South African, is capable, we need that skill. The failure of us not using South African skill is going to underperformance, is going to ensure that the black elite and the white elite remain at the core of this economy, and the majority of South Africans who are at the bottom of the pyramid, unskilled and poor, continue.
Thank you very much, Lumkile Mondi, for having been my guest. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
And of course, that's going to be the focus. We'll be talking about the South African Airways following the sudden resignation, I must say, of the CEO at that state-owned enterprise. What is going on at SAA and what needs to be done to turn the SOEs around? That's my next discussion.